Can you hear me?
Yes. Oh my God. Finally, we connect.
Good.
How are you doing, Mark?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good too. All right. So guys, I'm Sejal Gupta from Mumbai, and today I'm here with Marque Garaux. He's an authorized level 2 Ashtanga Yoga teacher from Ohio, USA. And he runs an Ashtanga Yoga Shala in Geneva. And he does fantastic workshops and retreats across the globe. And of course, he's a dear friend. So welcome, Mark. It's great to have you here today.
Thank you, Sejal. It's great to be here.
All right, Mark. So my first question to you today is, in the West, do you think that, yoga and fitness has moved towards quick fix solutions?
I don't know if move towards is the right way to say it, but I don't think it's a new thing necessarily. But I think for a long time, maybe in the West, we kind of look for quick solutions. And I think fortunately, Ashtanga tries to preserve that, or the opposite rather. Most Ashtanga teachers I know really try to instill in their students that this isn't a quick fix, that you have to dedicate a lot of time and energy and years, of dedication to this.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, a lot of people, when they start yoga, they kind of, don't see immediate significant results, so how long does it take, to see a significant benefit, with the practice, because people give up easily.
Yeah, it's quite true. So I mean, myself as an owner of a yoga shala and a teacher, when I first opened, I was kind of desperate to get people in the door so I could pay my rent of my building. So I would take drop-ins, people who've never done yoga of any kind or this or that, or people that were just traveling through.
Right.
There's a lot of like tourists that come to our town. So people just come for the weekend and they'd drop into a Mysore class and they'd see them once and never see them again. I was doing that a lot. But now, I've been teaching for a while and I really try to discourage that. I really try to encourage my students, like, if you're going to come, I need you to commit, and I try to get people to commit right off the bat for 3 months. I think in 3 months time, if you're practicing pretty dedicated and, just about daily, you can see the beginning of results. But like, to answer your question more, like, to see real results, I mean, it could take 5 years, 10 years, 15, it could take a long time.
Right.
I came to the practice pretty injured. I had some herniated discs in my low back when I first started. And it took me probably about 4 years, maybe 4.5 years, till I felt pain relief.
Yeah.
So.
Wow. Right.
I think really different for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, but it could, like, are you saying that it could take like a few years to kind of, get to see some kind of physical and mental benefit out of the practice?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think most people see physical benefit sooner than the mental and the emotional. But people who are in really bad shape, it may take them years to see that. I mean, my back was in really, really poor shape whenever I first started. So, I mean, it really is different. But I think a lot of people come in and after a month or whatever, they are like, wow, I feel great. Like, I feel more flexible than ever before. And, so you do get that as well. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So tell us, what changes have you seen in your students over the years, like through your yoga? Like, what kind of changes have you seen personally?
Well, I mean, I've seen a lot of physical changes. I've seen people who were not very mobile regain a lot of mobility. I have a fair number of older students. So I've seen women who maybe were mothers their entire life, who possibly didn't make enough time for themselves, start doing this practice, and now all of a sudden realizing that they're actually strong. Oh, I actually have strength, and then that mentally and emotionally empowers them as well. So that's really cool to see. You know, and yeah, all kinds of great things like that. I have a student who lives alone. She lived alone her whole life. And she's, you know, maybe struggled a little bit here and there with depression. And the yoga Shala has become like a second home for her. A lot of times I think she comes in because she wants to see my dog, Chai. And she wants to see, you know, me, and she wants to see Sarah, and she wants to see like her friends, you know. So a lot of the reason that she gets out of bed in the morning and gets there is because there's like other things drawing her there. So it's really opened up. I think she's emotionally much more, she's happier, she's more stable, and that's really great to see. She has a community now. Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's great. I think as a teacher, it's great to see people actually transform and, you know, observe these things, no?
It is, yeah. Sometimes we forget, like how, you know, like I've been practicing for a little over 10 years now, so I sometimes forget like where I came from and how bad my back was and stuff. But then when I see students come in with similar issues, and then over a couple months or 6 months or a year, I see them sort of progress, it takes me back to that. And it makes me feel like a new student again, you know, so it's nice to see.
Yeah. So also, like, you know, in the West, do you think that most people come to the practice, you know, with the intention of like body beautification, or is it something beyond that they are looking at?
I think a lot of us come to it because we want to be able to do handstands or cool deep back bends, or we want a six-pack. Yeah. I think a lot of it has to do with that. A lot of it has to do with the ego. And I don't want to say that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm not going to make a judgment on that. I think whatever maybe gets you into the door is initially a good thing, you know. What we do with that tool down the road, you know, depends then, you know. But yes, I think a lot of Westerners do come to it for that reason. But I have a good amount of people coming to yoga because they want more peace in their lives. They, you know, they live chaotic, crazy lives and looking for some mental or emotional release as well.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think it might sound like a cliched question now, but according to you, what are the benefits of yoga?
Well, so I'm gonna take your question and make it a little more specific. Let's go with what are the benefits of Ashtanga, because that's what I really, you know, you and I both. That's what we know.
Right.
But so what I think is so magical about the Ashtanga practice is that we do practice it in the Mysore method. And if there's any listeners who doesn't know what the Mysore method is, the Mysore practice is not a led class. Everyone is working at their own pace in the room. People are working at their own ability level. The teacher moves around, helps each student. So because of that, because we memorize a set sequence, it gives us an opportunity to really like kind of shut our mind off and get to know ourselves. Like we start to see how we think and how we react to things. A lot of our reactions day to day, if you're driving the car and someone cuts you off, or you're at the grocery store and someone gives you a rude look, a lot of our reactions are automatic. You know, like we don't even think about what we do. It's become an automatic ingrained reaction. Right. But in the practice, if you start getting mad all the time because of this reason or that reason, or, oh, I'm tight today, so I'm not having a good day, or, oh, I feel weak, or I ate too much last night, and you get down on yourself, you start having all these negative reactions. You start to see those things day in and day out.
Right.
And that's when we get to start to realize, like, hey, we get to be more mindful. You know, we get the opportunity to say, do I need to react that way every time? How is that reaction benefiting me? Or should I just practice? You know, who cares if I'm tight today? Who cares if I feel weak, or if I ate too many cookies last night? Who cares? I'm just going to get on my mat and practice and see what happens. So it really makes us more mindful, less reactionary. I think that's one of the biggest benefits. But I mean, physically, it's going to make you strong. It's going to make you flexible. It's going to give you more mobility. And if you're more mobile, you can go outside and enjoy nature. You can go out and do other things. As you age, you can spend time with your children, grandchildren, all this stuff, you know. So there's just endless benefits, I feel, with practice.
And I think it's always said, no, that you actually practice not for yourself, but for the people around you, because by taking care of yourself, you're actually taking care of people around you, because you're not a liability on anybody.
Yeah, that's so well said. You're absolutely right. Yeah. I think we have the ability to be better citizens, better spouses, better friends to people when we take care of ourselves first. That's true.
Right. Yeah. Especially the spouses, I think, will be super happy, because I think we don't end up fighting so much.
Yes.
So I want to know that, in the West, from where does the motivation and inspiration come for the practice? Does it come from within, or does it come from outside?
Yeah, that's a tough question. But what I find is that motivation, like true motivation, is a hard thing to teach someone or a hard thing to instill in someone. I was in the Marine Corps when I was younger, and in boot camp, like basic training, the drill sergeants would yell and scream at us and try to motivate us, but it comes down to the fact that you were just scared, so that's why you did what you were told to do. But actual real motivation, that's difficult. I would rather have a student who is maybe less able-bodied, maybe not real flexible or not real strong, but extremely motivated to create some change in their life, motivated to be healthy, whatever the reason is, motivated for something. I would rather have that student than someone who comes to me who is super flexible, really strong, can do anything, doesn't really care.
Right.
You know? That's a harder student to teach, honestly. So yeah, I think the motivation has to come within to a certain point. But teachers can help nurture that and encourage it, of course. Yeah.
Okay. What have your biggest challenges been, and how has yoga helped you personally? Maybe you have some story to share.
Yeah. So for me, I was about 22 years old, and I was in the Marine Corps, and I had injured my back, and I was having a lot of low back, lumbar pain, and it was getting to the point where, I mean, sometimes I was fine, and then other days, like I would move a funny way, and then I wouldn't be able to put weight on my feet for like a day or something. Like I would just have all this pain. And when I got out of the Marine Corps, it started getting worse. I was rock climbing a lot. I was doing a lot more, well, not more activity, but I was doing a lot of different activity, I guess. And it just started getting really, really bad. And so I started doing yoga purely for physical reasons initially. It was just to try to find some relief from that pain, so I could go about doing the hobbies that I love to do, be outside and go rock climbing and go backpacking and hiking and all this stuff. I wanted to do that more. So that was the initial reason why I started doing yoga. And, I was raised Catholic, in a Catholic family. We went to church every Sunday, and I was always bored as a kid, kind of like, why do I have to be here? But at the same time, even though I was bored at church, I was always really serious about my prayers at night. I was always every night before I went to bed, I said all my prayers, did all my blessings for all my friends and family. And I always had this little spiritual connection, even though I kind of struggled with Catholic Mass, on Sundays. So after doing yoga for a little while, after I started feeling this physical relief, I started feeling a really nice familiar feeling, like a familiar connection that I hadn't felt in a long time. And so it's really, and that's what really brought me to India. If I was only doing it still for physical reasons, I probably wouldn't go to India every year. But it was because I started to get a deeper connection that made me want to learn more. And so it really has changed me as a person. It's helped control my attention deficit disorder. I'm definitely a very active, busy person, and it's definitely calmed my mind a lot as well. So it's had so many wonderful benefits in my life. I think it's made me a better husband to Sarah. It's made me a more patient pet owner. Like I really love spending time with my dog and training her, and like I'm real patient with her. And when I go to India every year, I find more street dogs and I train them, and it's made me just a more patient person in general. Which is great.
Wow, that's incredible. Amazing. So guys, I think one takeaway from this talk is that inspiration comes from within. Am I right, Mark?
I think so.
All right, so we're going to just see if anybody has any questions. We're just going to take a few. So if you have any questions, guys, you can just quickly send them to me. And let's just wait a moment. Where's your dog, Mark? Where's Chai?
I'll bring you to her.
Yeah. Bring her. Let me say hi to her.
She is the laziest dog when she's indoors, and then when she's outside, she loves to run. But she's just like sleeping right now. Yep. She's always sleeping. She has a good life. Oh man, I want some chai too. It's been a while since I've had good chai.
All right, so we have a question here from Alpana. She says, is there any best time to do yoga? So Mark.
So according to Ashtanga yoga and like the philosophy involved there, they say that the morning hours are the most auspicious, the hours before sunrise or right around sunrise. And I personally like to do that. So I get up around 3 a.m. every morning and practice about 3:30. I start my practice. Sometimes earlier, but sometimes later if I sleep in a little bit. But typically I try to get up around 3 and practice. But for me, I do like to honor the tradition, but it's what works best for my life. I'm a bit of a procrastinator. So I know that if I wake up in the morning and don't practice, and then I start teaching, and I teach Mysore for 5 hours every morning. If I teach my Mysore, then by that time 11 o'clock rolls around, I'm going to be kind of like, oh, I have this chore to do, that chore to do. I'll do my yoga later. I'll do it later. And I'll probably put it off, So for me, it's a good way of just being like, I'm going to do it now, get it done. It's out of the way. I feel good about myself. But as far as like physically, the times I have practiced later in the day, my body feels much better. I feel much more open later in the day. So I think the individual has to make that decision up for themselves.
Right.
I have a clearer mind in the morning, but I have a clearer feeling body in the afternoons. So.
Yeah. So I think it depends on what suits each person based on, what works for each individual.
Yeah. And schedule has a big deal to do with it too, because most of us don't have the ability to not work and just like sit around and meditate all day. And, so because we have to go to work, and a lot of people have children and families, you have to do it when it fits, really.
Right. Sure. All right. We have another question from Deepak. He asks, do you practice the food habits as a yogi, or do you eat your traditional food? That's an interesting one.
Yeah, that's a good question. I wish I could eat more Indian food when I'm home here in Ohio, because I love it and I miss it when I'm here. But I have not become very good at preparing it myself. And the town I live in doesn't have any Indian restaurants. So I eat my traditional food. However, I do, I don't necessarily call myself a vegetarian, but I do eat a pretty vegetable-based diet. Like I eat meat, animal products very rarely. It's more like if I go to someone's house and they prepare food, I'm not going to turn it away if they prepare something for me that may have meat in it or something like that. That's an interesting one.
Yeah, sure.
But the food I cook here in my home is all vegetarian. Like I try to stay away from that stuff. So.
Is it easy to be vegetarian though?
I don't know if it's easy, but it's not hard. And I have a little garden in my backyard here at my new house, so I'm really excited. I'm planting all my little things now, and they're starting to sprout up. So I'm excited for that. But yeah, It's not too difficult. And Sarah and I eat the same diet, so that makes it very easy too. If
Amazing.
your spouse eats, different
Yeah,
food than you, then it makes it much more difficult.
of
Yeah.
course. Yeah, it's easier when, like you have the same kind of preference, because then it's easier to cook one meal than cooking different things for each. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. All right, so I think this was great, Mark. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
It was great chatting with you today. And
Likewise.
thank you guys.
What
So
was
see you
that? You cut out.
soon. Can you hear?
Yeah, you cut out for a second, but
Okay. Yeah, the network's
sorry.
a little bad on this side, so maybe, yeah. All right, guys. So thank you for listening, and thank you, Mark, once again. Lovely having you. Take
Thank you,
care.
Sejal.
See
All
you.
right.